Hello, everyone. Welcome to the journey through the snowy lands. Today, we're going to talk about Am Setsuna. This is a game that was released by Square Enix, but was made by a company called Tokyo RPG Factory, which is basically their attempt to have a nostalgic indie kind of vibe of a developer team. Now, something I want to make very clear before we start getting into this game is something they advertised when this game came out was a new battle system inspired by the timeless JRPG classic Chrono Trigger. This line has completely led many people to go like, you clearly can see in the line it says a new battle system inspired. Not the story, not the tale, not everything else, but many people for some reason took this line to be like, oh, it's Chrono Trigger's like spiritual sequel of everything. Yeah, they should be expecting exactly like Chrono Trigger. And that led to a lot of criticism of people spewing Chrono Trigger-esque complaints. So, I just want to say, I think because after looking at the negative reviews for this game after I finished it, the two most common problems a lot of people have with this game is it not living up to Chrono Trigger is one of them. The other one we'll get into when we get to other things, but so I want to say the worst thing you can do is to set up the pre-notion that this should be incredibly similar to Chrono Trigger in every other aspect of the game. So with that out of the way, let's get into this. So Am Setsuna has you filling the role of a mercenary who's out on a job, and after fulfilling a small minor job, you get a new job to go kill someone. You accept, and you go there to go and murder. Sadly, you fail horribly at this, but you get involved in this character's story. Setsuna is set up to sacrifice her life to supposedly somehow save the world as monster population increases. Her village is in charge of doing a sacrifice that supposedly protects the world from monsters, and as time goes on, whatever the previous sacrifice does, as far as I can tell, no one actually knows what happens there. Whatever they do, it weakens and monster population goes up. So, you get dragged in this journey because, well, she's going to sacrifice herself, so you make a pact to be like, well, you are going to die, so I guess I might as well just see you through it, and then you die and I get my job done. And this leads, of course, to a crazy JRPG adventure that leads to many people being joined into a group of merry men, women, and crazy people. Now, the combat, again, as advertised, is indeed inspired on Chrono Trigger, and is both interesting and I'd say a lot of things we're going to talk about here in this game are going to be an interesting idea, but I feel like it's flawed. So, what's interesting about the combat in this as an evolution to Chrono Trigger? So, a lot of Chrono Trigger mobs don't usually move around a lot on the field. They move around some, but a lot of times they just kind of wobble into a little area. Enemies and your characters move around quite a bit on the battlefield, but your allies move only at a reaction of either being hit by something or doing one of their moves, while enemies have a lot more movement around the battlefield while time is progressing. Now, my complaint here is a lot of moves. Like, Chrono Trigger has different area effect and multi-selecting type things, but this game really went on the idea of having different kind of area effects and stuff. Some straight woes, some drag enemies into a center or something, some scatter them about, some of them just do like a slash. It just depends on the move of that. It kind of reminds me of way into Historia a little bit, where you can get different enemies all caught up in different attacks a little bit in that. And that's kind of my complaint, is the fact that you can't directly move your characters to take advantage of this more. Because I'd say like 80% of the moves are like AoE attacks. Well, it's a bit like everything around the target is going to get hit by it. Where there's only a few moves that'll drag everything into the target. Like there's a black hole type move that you'll get early on that lets you do that. I didn't find as many moves like that, and I would have liked to seen some moves that gave you a little bit more control on how you could move enemies about a bit, so you could pull off some different types of attacks. That's not an end of the world kind of complaint, but it just felt kind of dry at the end when you just basically have, okay, these guys all have attacks that just hit everything around the target, so throw a black hole and, use that crunch. I mean, there are a few attacks that do like straight lines, like one of the duel, which is obviously based off Chrono Trigger, Fog and Chrono's X Strike, which is in the game. The two characters going in a straight line, making X, everything in their path getting hit. I would have liked to see some more interesting moves in that kind of caliber, but I didn't really find a whole lot of advanced moves like that. Now, to be fair, I didn't find every single move, because that involves a complicated system of doing a lot of grinding and backtracking to get everyone's skills, and we'll get into that. Again, so, combat isn't a huge evolution over Chrono Triggers. They just kind of did a little bit more in that sense. Now, what is unique with this game is the momentum system. Now, what momentums is basically button presses. It's a timed button press that happens with any of their attacks, and they can do many different things. Buffs, healing, additional damage, AoEs, status effects. They can do lots of different things, and they really change up the game. Like, for example, the tank character, I got one of his moves that had a momentum that allowed it to heal everyone when triggered. And there's one, like, with the main character has a healing type move where its momentum actually adds auto revive on a player. It adds a little extra strategy. Now, I always say, like, I like the idea of having kind of a rhythm button pressy type idea mixed in the JRPGs, but I don't like it to be forced where, like, if you're not really good at, then you're basically not going to progress unless you massively overlevel. And luckily, it does not feel like that in this game, where you're being forced to have to use momentum. You can just play like a traditional JRPG, not having to worry, but you definitely are forsaking a lot of those benefits and having to use characters more as the traditional roles, where you could break those molds using momentums, because like I said, I literally had a move that allowed my tank to basically be my healer at the same fucking time. Do massive damage, sponge attack, heal. Like, pretty weird shit. So, you're definitely forsaking some of the other strategies you could do by doing that, but I certainly feel like the game was playable without momentums. But momentums give a lot of different extra bonuses, and that's definitely what's really new on top of the combat system. Now, your cast of characters don't learn those skills through leveling up. It does have traditional leveling up system, no weird bizarro systems when it comes to that, but the techniques they all learn is totally different. So, this goes into kind of a different multi-system. So, I like to call this system a item guild system, or well, it's more realistic that the monsters don't actually give you money but give you items to sell to get money. And you might be like, what's that have anything to do with tech buildies? We're getting there though. So you get your money that way, and based on the items you sell to the merchant, there's another NPC that will trade you tech abilities, but you had to have given someone monster items. So let's give an example. Let's say there's a sword technique for the main character. You need this bone from the seal and a eye from this fox creature to get it. You need 2 of each. You go get those, sell those to the merchant, and you can claim the tech. It doesn't consume any additional money or anything. It's given you for free for selling those items to the merchant. And that adds a lot of backtracking when it comes to the bigger picture, because when it comes to getting items from monsters, you get different items based on different criteria of how they died. You got the normal drop, the rare drop, the overkill drop, the exact kill, meaning you killed it exactly, or I think it can be a little close. I don't think it has to be 100% exact, but I think it has to be like in the ballpark of what its HP pool is. Then you got fire kill, water kill, light kill, shadow kill, time kill, momentum kill, debuff kill, and link kill. Each of these can produce a completely different item. Now, not every mob always has an item for every single one of those kills, but a good chunk of enemies do generally drop something for every one of those kills. And they can drop, like, say, let's see, this one enemy, the water and fire kill both give you the exact same item, so does the time kill. So, like, certain kills can give you the same type of item from the same mob, but in large, like, let's use the very first enemy. Those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 items it has, and I never even got a shadow or a debuff kill with it, so I don't know if there was even more potential items, but it has 7 different items linked to it. Now, certain items obviously can drop from different mobs as well, but this leads to a problem of mainly needing to kill everything with every type of killing, if you especially want every single tech. Like I said, I did not get every single tech. Like, let's see, does it actually list, well, the tech stuff? Nah, it doesn't seem to be a percentage thing for how many techs. Oh, wait, nope, there it is. So I've gotten 47% of them in the game, and I finished the game. So I didn't even get half of them. So there were way more than I even ever gotten. So if you want everything, you have to go about and kill everything with every type of element and style you can, basically, to get all the items necessary to unlock all of them. So it kind of makes you have to play your cards carefully with harder to obtain items, or items you don't really want to go backtrack for, really, if you're not going to stock up on tons of these items to ensure, because it's not always a case of needing 1 or 2. Sometimes they want like a good handful of different items, so you kind of have to work for it. Luckily, you do have the Snow Chronicles that keeps track of all your monster kills and everything, so you're not going to run into a situation where it's like, well, fuck, I don't know where to find this item or that. You can go back and get an idea what the hell had what and such. Now, something they added interestingly to your techs is Fluxes. This is another interesting idea. It's definitely not something you have to pay attention to. I made no real efforts aside from the very beginning. I made a little chance because I didn't get a lot of Fluxes at the beginning, and they started becoming incredibly frequent later in the game. But Fluxes So Fluxes are random, like, stat increases like higher crit, more damage, eats up less MP, the ATB bar fills up faster, things like that get added to the skills. So you could actually have multiple versions of every, like, I could have 3 Cyclones for the main character and have them all have completely different Fluxes for different strats. Now, this is a very interesting idea if the game had lots of wild, crazy difficulty modes, but the game doesn't, so it kind of feels like just a throwaway idea, because I certainly didn't consider the game to be super hard, though there are super bosses for you to go fight that are harder than the final boss, so there is that aspect, which I didn't go for the super bosses, I just did the story. So I can't really comment on the super boss aspect, that's probably more where getting specific Fluxes come from, and the way you control Fluxes is another idea that's both good and bad. The good is you don't have traditional gear, you have your weapon, a wing slot, and your tech abilities. Now, your wing slot controls 2 things. It controls your flux bonuses, which are the things that can trigger to be added to the different skills of the character. Early game, many of the wings you find have multiple flux bonuses on them, meaning any of those can be triggered and then be put on to a skill, and you're not mandatorily forced to accept it. You can reject it if it's not something you want on that particular skill, if you're going to be very picky about how you customize them. But later on, you'll start finding wings with 2 or even just the specific thing you want, which gives you a lot more control to get the specific thing you want on it. Now, the thing that confused me with wings is bonus effect. For a very long portion of the game, you will find so many wings that have literally no bonus effect. Then you'll find a few that have make enemies' HP visible. And then you'll still see nothing for ages again. Until, if you're lucky, you might find the EXP, and I believe there was a money one too. I know there was the EXP, boost drop weight, boost EXP, I think there was a money one. And there's also a bunch of expensive ones that have individual flux bonuses with the bonus effect of boosting flux weight, making it even easier. And that's about it. Let's see, there was a boost HP and MP. Yeah, here were a few others. Boost physical, boost magical. But these were like all things I found way late in the game. Like, I would tell you like 90% of the game, most of these wings have literally no bonus effect. I feel that is so odd, because it could have really encouraged you to have to balance between fluxes and advantages. But basically the late game ones that actually have real effects on them, they're either like individual or have no thing on them at all. It's just really, really odd. Oh, actually, I accidentally, yeah, there they are. Yeah, like the ones that have the bonus effects for HP, MP, physical, and that, they have no flux bonuses, and they do offer additional tech slots too, which is something else you do have to debate, because like some of the ones with individual flux, they don't have any slots, and you can get up to 4 additional tech slots with wings. So you have to choose between the flux bonuses you want, how many additional slots, and whether there's any actual useful bonus effect on them. But honestly, I just feel like the bonus effect ones that you find late game are just basically, well, you're done with fluxes. Here's these wings that give you 4 slots, and, just equip them on the appropriate characters you like. I kind of feel like it was wasted potential. outside of that, you don't really get any stat effects or anything with wings. Your weapons dictate your magical, physical attack and defense. And there are quite a few weapons, and there is a system of strengthening weapons with items that you can purchase. So you don't always have to upgrade to the newest weapon. You could take the route of upgrading your current weapon with materials. Now, there are slight differences in the different weapons, especially when you max them all out. I tested that out when I got the late game. I tried maxing out a few, so there are slight differences in the different weapons, but nothing that's likely really going to make it a hard choice to pick what you want for whatever particular playstyle. And most weapons don't have a lot of special effects on them until like late in the game, while some might have a bit of critical SP accumulation, which SP accumulation used for momentum. But a good portion of the beginning weapons don't really have any like particular special effects. They'll just have slightly different physical and magical stats. Now, you do get a decent sized party here, and it is a classic 3 party members. There's no there's no changing in or out party members mid combat, and there is no one option, oddly enough, in combat. Though there is an item that lets you run away. I saw a review that complained about that. It's like, there's no option of run away, which, I mean, to be fair, it did confuse me a little in the beginning, but yeah, there's an item you have to buy to run away in this, and as far as I know, it's a 100% success rate in running away, so I guess there's that advantage. Slightly odd, kind of the same thing with like ends. There's no ends in the game, and at first it seems kind of confusing, because it's like, well, how am I supposed to rest? There are tents you buy and use outside, and you know, like when you think about the story, it makes sense why there's no ends. Nobody travels in this world. It's a very dangerous world, so it's like, who ends would just basically be wanting out of business every time they try to start up. The sacrifices journey is basically the only people that really travel in this world. So it does make sense why there are no ends, but it did seem kind of weird in the beginning. So it's kind of a odd side thing you have to do. A little extra work, go by, one outside, heal, and that. There are save points, and you can save on the world map. You can't just save anywhere in dungeons or anything. So it is pretty much traditional. There's no auto saving or anything. It's all manual saving. So for all you newish people play like Fallout and stuff, and you used to all your auto saving, and get your asses down, get into a save point. Sit down and listen to my tale, young ones. Now, how should we go about? Now, you don't have random encounters like Chrono Trigger and that. You do see enemies outside of combat, and you can walk around enemies and such. So, they're avoidable potentially, like Chrono Trigger is. But, like I said, you're kind of encouraged to want to get as many item types you can, so you can continuously keep having techs available. And it's also important to note, I wouldn't say feel like it's necessary to get all techs, because there are way more techs for every single character than you can equip. So you will not be able to have every single character's abilities at one time. There are more abilities than there are those slots. So you will have to subjectively pick and choose what things you want with what characters. But like I said, many characters can fulfill different roles because of the momentum effects. So like, you can have some really strange combos outside of the characters. Like, you know, the main character is a bit of a roundabout character. Setsuna is a white mage filling, and you know, each character has those stereotypical kind of role, but they can break out of it. Like Setsuna Setsuna can actually be like a crazy damage dealer with some abilities. Like she has a triple combo that can do a lot of fucking damage. Actually, what's interesting is I think it was called. There's one that's called Grand Cross that was kind of interesting to note because I played Persona 2 this year. So that was kind of funny to me that there was a combo. Now I didn't get a whole lot of use out of too many combos. There are a lot of combos, but again, you need the right text to make dual and triple combos. And like I said, like I didn't even get 50% of all the text that are available. So now, outside of normal abilities, there are passive abilities also that support, so they're not all just actual actions, so they're all supportive ones that help out in the background as well, that can affect how you kill or do certain things, so it offers a lot of customization. But I feel like it's a little lost because there ain't like difficulty modes. Basically, depending on the super bosses, which is why I would imagine the customization widely takes a lot more advantage of, I would imagine. But it does offer lots of customization, and I like that about the game. For sure, I like that. I like that. I like it. I like it. Now, getting into some other elements. Graphically, this is not a graphic. Like, I'm sure by now you can tell very easily. This is not a graphically taxing game. It's on PC, PS4, Vita, and Switch. It's only on Vita in Japan, if I remember quickly. I don't think America got a English version on Vita, but we have it digitally on Switch, PC, and PS4, and there is a Switch physical Japanese version that actually has English on it, so if you're like me, that's what you want to aim for in that. But. So the graphic, it's not very fidelity, but I think it works definitely like in a Switch and Vita-esque. I think its simplicity helps kind of like with the nostalgic of not being super complicated. The only thing I think is kind of weird is they don't actually have feet. They just have stubby legs with no feet attached to them. A little odd on that. But everyone has very nice designs and everything. I really feel like it helps with the nostalgic kind of vibe of not being super complicated. But that's just me. Obviously, if you want a super intense graphic fidelity game, this is definitely not your cup of tea here. But I like the art style. I definitely think it works out a lot for the Switch and Vita for portability in that sense. Obviously, playing it on PS4 and Steam probably seems a little weird, but I like the style. The 2D artwork, which is very limited to just the profile images when people are talking and such, which is a shame. I really wish there was way more 2D artwork in this game, because it is beautiful, gorgeous stuff. It is almost criminal they don't make more use of more of the actual drawing art style, because it is so beautiful. I love it. Look up some of the official artwork. It is very nice stuff. It almost makes me wonder what a just 2D game or a sprite-based game with art style might have looked like. Obviously, that would have been much nicer on the nostalgic factor, but the sad truth is that would have also costed more, because that would have been more harder to make than simplified 3D models. A shame it is, but that is reality, sadly. Like I said, this isn't a studio where they're like, here's millions of dollars, make a nostalgic. This is just like a side company Square Enix is giving pennies to do a little indie nostalgic kind of thing. Like I said, as far as I know, they're not being like massively paid like their normal workers. They're a side thing, so make excuses or think it's unacceptable, that's kind of your call in that boat. Now, aesthetically, the vibe this game's giving out is supposed to be a very sad thing. Like, that was the kind of idea of the game. It was supposed to be very sad and tragic. So the world is completely covered in snow. So it is just literally a depressing world of like everyone trying to survive and shit. And the entire soundtrack is piano. Obviously, that's going to be subjective, because if you don't like the piano, then you're not going to like the soundtrack. And then, of course, depending on how much you like a piano, you might get sick of certain tracks playing over and over again. I definitely understand the choice for piano, since they wanted to go for a very sad mood vibe for the game. So I get the use of the piano. I still wouldn't have minded a few more epic moments of the game to have maybe a little bit more than just a piano, but I definitely give some props of creativity on the limitation, because a lot of times you gotta remember in older games, limitation really brought a lot of creativity, and saying if they succeeded or fail is kind of hard because it's just very subjective. Some people really like it, some people found it kind of eh. It's definitely not a game full of happy vibes constantly. There are sometimes a few joke moments here and there, but it really just keeps on the journey, hero's quest, depressing ass world kind of vibe for the majority of the game. It has light humor sprinkled here and there, but overall it's kept pretty minimal, and likes to tone up the tragedy. Not quite Neo levels of tragedy though, but there's some tragedies to be found in the game. Yeah. Overall, I like the game, but some of the design, like I said, a lot of the design aspects of the game were like, this was an interesting idea, but I'm kinda don't understand why you didn't went more into it, like with wings having more bonus effects, or why it just seems kind of too, how should I say, too flooded with stuff. Like, there are a lot of items for monsters and a lot of text. Like, here's a complaint for me personally. When you go and get texts, like, there's no way to sort them. Like, I would have liked it, there'll be, like, a way to sort them by character, or sort the ones you have and don't have. There's no way to sort through them, you have to go through the whole entire list. Now, you don't start with all of them listed at the beginning. They get added in as you find items and progress through the game, so by the end of the game, the list will be humongous list of abilities, and it's just gets to be a chore to go through them. I would have loved an option to either single out a character's text on the list, or single out the ones you haven't gotten yet, because mainly I just went for ones I haven't had yet. Like I said, I didn't go too crazy trying to customize fluxes on them. I just kind of went, if they got the flux, slap it in, might as well. I didn't go too crazy on the crazy customizationness of it all. I liked the game, and I would hate to be negative about it, honestly, because I did like it, even though it is flawed. It definitely has its flaws. Because, like, how to put, I feel like either, I don't know if it was a localization or if they just kind of rushed some plot points. Some of the plot points felt like they just kind of immediately go to the next thing, like a little too fast at times. That, like, they move on really quickly. Could be a localization thing. I'm not quite sure on that, honestly. But, I mean, the game definitely has its different weaknesses. And I would really hate to just be like, it's garbage or it's trash. Because I honestly do like it. I think it did a pretty decent job. It definitely could have used mobile work. I'm definitely looking forward to trying Lost Field, which is the second game, which is supposed to continue the same kind of gameplay. So it would definitely be interesting to see if they involved more from I Am Setsuna to Lost Field. But what do I think value-wise is I Am Setsuna? Don't mind me, I can't speak English language. Me in English. But you're definitely getting what you're paying for sure. You're not getting a weird stupid video ads. I just wanted to check something and you just let me play your stupid ad. I wanted to see, because I can't remember how long I played. Yeah, I'm stealthily trying to go to my playlist to see how long it was. Shoo me. Let's see, it took me 24 hours and 40 minutes to get through the game, recording-wise. Not counting any off-screen fighting I did early in the game. There were only a few times I did a little, so probably safe to say maybe 30 hours. I don't think that's necessarily bad. That's pretty average for a JRPG back in the Super Nintendo and PS1 days. 30 to 60 hours was kind of considered the normal for a JRPG in those days. 60 being the long term, with only a few exceptions like Dragon Quest VII. Good lord, that game's long. Way too long. Of course, nowadays you got modern Persona games making you go to 100 hours, so if you're more used to that, you're definitely, unless you do all the side stuff, you're definitely not going to be finding that time length in this game at all. But what would I say is the value of I Am Setsuna? I think this would be a good $29.99 game, which is sadly below its listed price. This is a $39.99 title digitally, and obviously if you want physically, it's going to be more. Brand new, it's $49.99 currently. You can still get brand new. And if you look on eBay, you can find it a little around the $40 mark, so you're definitely going to still pay more for a physical copy. The Japanese physical copy, which is what I'm referring to as the physical. You can find the PS4. I don't think there was a physical for Vita. Let me take a look. I'm not sure if there was a physical for Vita, actually. I don't think I've ever seen one. Okay, there was a physical for Vita. It does exist. Actually, there's one for $29.95 on eBay right now. You can find the PS4 version around $20, but that does not have English. Only the Japanese Switch copy has English on it, which obviously makes it more pricey on eBay. So you can find a few around the 40. Here's one for $34 actually used. So you can find it a little bit under on eBay, but yeah, you're not gonna find it that much cheaper. So physically wise, you're not going to really get much. There's not anything too crazy about the reverse cover, though it is nice, simple little it's a landscape, dark, nighttime, but there's nothing too crazy. I would have loved to seen there's a really nice official artwork where it shows the whole cast on there. That would have been really nice to see in there, but you don't get any booklet. You get some slip things for Square Enix site, and well, it kind of is a booklet, but it's literally just a piece of paper folded in half with the controls on it with no pictures or anything. So, yeah. So, you're not really getting anything too crazy for the physical copy. So, that's obviously up to your cup of tea. And looking at Steam reviews, because I did look at some reviews to see some of the common complaints with the game. There were so many people who complained about the price being too high on Steam. It's crazy. There's even people complaining it doesn't go on sale very often. Like some people saying they wait months and months just to see if the game will go on sale to buy. And like I said, I understand. I just said I consider the game more of a $29.99 value. And I feel like the big choice in that is the amount of time you get in it. It is, especially compared to modern JRPGs, a much shorter experience. Now, like I said, there is a lot of side content you can do. It mainly all comes out of nowhere at the end of the game, but there was lots of side content you can do. I've actually off-screen looked at some of it and seen some of it on the internet. There's a whole bunch of different chains for every character and a bunch of other stuff. There's a lot of different things, and there's a slight spoiler thing that I'll talk about in spoilers that adds with it too, but that's pretty much my thoughts on Am Setsuna for you. I recommend it if you can find it for a decent price that you feel like it's worth it. This is definitely going to be something, it's a lot more subjective. Because it just ultimately depends on what you are willing to pay for this. I enjoyed it. I don't necessarily regret getting the Switch copy, but I can definitely understand why somebody would think it's a little overpriced. So, hopefully, when I get to Lost Field, hopefully it took a lot of decent criticism and improved on ideas they had in this. I look forward to trying it and hope that it's a better game. But I certainly don't think this is a bad game. But I definitely think it's definitely going to cater more towards hardcore JRPG people and old school JRPG people versus highly new, graphic, flashy, like, how to put it this way. If Persona 5 is like one of the only JRPGs you like, you probably wouldn't like this because it definitely caters more to a nostalgic base. If you need a lot of flashy graphics, this isn't your game. But anyway, let's get into spoilers. So, here's something else I don't think that helped with the whole Chrono Trigger thing. I've said if you watch me when I played through this game, I said multiple times that I think it was a terrible mistake for people to go in here with the mindset of Chrono Trigger because the combat's the only thing really there. Well, actually, much later in the game, several elements Chrono Trigger-y start actually taking effect. You start learning, and it is subtly hinted. It's interesting when you look back at some moments, because it is subtly hinted that something more is going on. You find out that the world's been going through a loop, basically meeting the apocalypse and then going through a loop again. So Setsuna has been going through a journey over and over again. And in an attempt to try and stop the world from ending. So there were hints that people subtly this seems familiar, or it's oh no, this again, wait a minute, what? That's the first big cue. That's about 70% mark when a character makes a remark about that. You know, a very suspicious character that starts getting everyone looking at her because of that comment. Well, at least should have. Something I also thought was interesting, actually, was how save points actually had a manifestation in the storyline. Kind of reminded me of Chrono Cross, oddly enough. Because in Chrono Cross, you found the save points had a significant meaning in the story, and similarly, they do in Setsuna. So basically, you find out the remnant energy of the time loops. So that's kind of a nice thing that's used for the ending to go back in time to stop the boss from screwing up all of time and shit. So that was kind of a nice little way to put your save point as an actual object in the game world. I mean, nobody really comments on it until the end. Though, to be fair, at the very beginning, actually, I think I remember the main character actually kind of, Yeah, actually, now I remember the NPC character that's with you at the beginning, actually. He's like, do you see something? And you can comment on seeing it or not. So, actually, that was even subtly hinted when you think about it. The main character acknowledged the save point, which you probably wouldn't really ever thought of it much of until it came up near the end of the game. So, actually, like, little things like that were really nice, in my opinion. But obviously, the whole looping time thing and stuff probably didn't help people avoid trying to compare the entirety of the game to Chrono Trigger. Another thing that probably didn't happen was the fact that a lot of the late game weapons pull references, like the rainbow sword that the main character has. It's like a light sword modeled of a weapon of a mythical hero. It glows of all colors rainbow. Huh. Wonder what that could be. Time Forger. That's a little weird. Doesn't that seem like something? Radiant Dagger. Radiant. And then there was, let's see, where was it? The Oaken Sword for the tank character. Modeled after a weapon of a mythical hero, a lump of wood, it can barely be called a sword. Let's see, the Chrono Staff, Luca's Wad, which is a hammer, FYI. So, like, here's one, and for some reason, this is a sword attached to a spear. But the Masamune is spelled differently, but it's like spelled in a way that still sound like the Masamune. And it even says 2 sibling spirits are said to reside at the blade at the tip of this lance. So there's definitely a number of references to Chrono Trigger characters and things. I mean, like, if you... The rainbow sword is clearly a reference to the rainbow shell weapons that you make in Cross and Trigger. I mean, it's just like, okay, now this is starting to get a little too on the point on some things. Like, you spend a huge chunk of the game just basically using the combat, and then all of a sudden it's like, hey, you know, let's just nudge at Chrono Trigger on that, yeah? And I believe, I think there was one that referenced Kid somewhere, I think. I can't quite remember. But the end of the game, you know, you go through this whole journey and you find out basically the kingdom in the Lost Land. Oh, the Last Land. I always keep mixing the two. You know, they made an experiment on a person. They became like a powerful demigod thing, and they just kept amassing power and wanting to destroy the world. It's a really sad situation because really it's not the final boss's fault. You know, they're in constant pain and shit. But I can't say I'm a real fan of how the ending happened, like, because, you know, they go back in time because the boss goes back in time to just to stop everything from happening, and you go back to stop it, but only the main character and Setsuna can see the time-resident energy, so they can only go backwards, and you just kind of have a story battle. Then Setsuna accepts the entity into her body so it can be alive again. And then she tells you to basically fulfill your end of the deal to kill her, so they can die, so it can experience resting in peace. Like, I get what she was doing, but it's just really sad that, you know, that came to that. But, you know, you get a choice, and as far as I could tell, the choice only affects whether a sword sound plays or not. I decided to go with it and got a sword swing. I looked up somebody who didn't choose to, and they didn't get a sword swing, but it didn't change the outcome. You still kill her. And the main character's left in the past, and everyone else moves on with their life. It's just kind of a shitty situation in a way for some of the Kyotos. They never get to find out what happened to the two of them, and the main Kyoto just goes about on his mercenary work with Setsuna's spirit following him. It's definitely a bittersweet ending. You know, they saved the world, but at a great cost. Like I said, the game's tone was definitely always aimed to be sad. That's why there definitely wasn't many happy, silly moments constantly. It definitely was meant to be a tragedy. I mean, you gotta... They saved the world, but... bit of a shame. Now, when you save at the end of the game, you get saved back at the final boss room and stuff, and basically when you get to the final boss room, as far as I understand, that's when it triggers all the in-game quests that lead to super bosses and additional special weapons and shit. Also, I didn't mention him at all during the main portion of the review, because he's a big spoiler. But obviously, we're in the spoil section, so it's time to talk about final party members. This is another criticism I have. You meet the guy, the Weeper, throughout the storyline, and you fight him multiple times, then he joins you near the end of the game. I mean, he literally joins you just before the final boss room. So basically, if you don't do any of the super boss content, you just literally just got a brand new character with nothing but his base weapon, and I think he started just with 1 or 2 skills. I don't remember how many he started with, but I had to run out and see what I could get for him. I wasn't able to fill up his skill thing all the way. Yeah, I think he started with Hex Slash and Dark Mist, I think. I don't quite remember. I only used him a little. But yeah, he joins you so late. It's such a shame. He does start high level. He's level 44. My main character is 38, so he started multiple levels above me. So it's not like a Cloud situation in that one game. You know what game I'm talking about. But still, you know, you just get him. And there's all kinds of new weapons for him if you go to the weaponsmith to go see if he has any options. He has a whole variety of weapons all at one time. It's just kind of weird he just gets dumped on you. I would imagine he'd be useful. It's just, do you want to put in the time to make him useful when you're literally at the end of the game? Like I said, if he's probably not really meaningful to use unless you decide you're going to go do all the side content. Like I said, there was like a major side quest for every single character, including him. And a few side areas and stuff that you can explore prior to coming to the final area with the airship you find. Actually, what's funny is there was a retro dev room that was fun. It wasn't really hard to find. It was pretty easy to find. But it was definitely a fun little throwback to like dev rooms that were like in Chrono Trigger, Final Fantasy IV. I loved it though, so that was definitely a very nostalgic little silly thing for me. I liked how they actually made sprites for different enemies and NPCs for that. So when I low key said it makes me curious what like if they went with sprites instead of models. That's definitely an area to go check out what that would have actually been like. But yeah, I can't say I'm a big fan of having one more character join literally just before the final boss. Like, just seems really weird. Especially since you've obviously been using all your other characters up to this point. Like I said, you can't swap them out or anything. You only can have the 3 in your party, so you're likely going to have your favorites that you mostly use. Because, besides a few moments, generally you get to keep everyone most of the time. There's only a few story events that drag a few characters occasionally away or knocked out of your party for a temporary amount of time. But generally you keep access to most characters throughout the game. So, you know, you're not generally forced too often outside the characters you'll like to use, but of course you there are instances of that, so you definitely still want to have more than just 3. And that's actually something interesting to point out. You can actually remove the main character. You don't actually have to have him in your main party, which I like that. I wish JRPGs would do that more often, because sometimes there's just a few situations like, Lily, the main character's not really doing much for this particular fight. Wish I could just trade him out for somebody else. Because, I mean, unless you got, like, modern Persona syndrome going on with, like, the main character, because, I mean, like, let's face it, like, Persona 3, 4, and 5, your MC is going to literally be the strongest party member constantly in your party. So you would never want them to not be in your party unless you wanted to handicap yourself. But there are also times in some JRPGs where everyone's role's more dictated, that sometimes it's like, I kind of wish I could just swap out for a different character. So you definitely don't have to use the main character, actually. So that's kind of a nice little thing. But yeah, that's generally my thoughts on the ending and such. Like I said, I didn't really do any of the side content much. I just kind of looked a little into them and looked up them a little bit. I don't usually do a lot of super bosses on forced playthroughs. When I replay a game, I'll usually check out super bosses then. So if I ever like replay the game, I'll likely check out super bosses then. Or if there's like a remake or remaster or something like that, situations like that are usually when I go into super bosses. Because, I got too many games. I got stuff to move on to. So it is a delightful, charming little game, in my opinion, but I definitely can see why different people would be iffy on purchasing it, especially for full price. But those are my thoughts on Am Setsuna. It had a lot of nice ideas. I have hopes for the next game, which isn't a sequel to the game. It's not a sequel. It's its own world in that. Now, the third game, I think, is more action-oriented, so I think they just completely dropped the gameplay in the third one. But, those are both separate subject matters to get into in the future. Hopefully I can get to Lost Sphere sometime soon. Since this wasn't a very long game, I would imagine Lost Sphere not being long, so I probably have a good chance I'll likely consider popping that in sometime next year, because I did enjoy this. But I definitely have to admit it is more on the pricey side, because I mean they definitely were going for more of a small scale, so it's kind of weird to be $40. I think being more 29ish is better myself. The 30, 29ish, whatever, with a penny difference. You know what I mean, but those are my thoughts. So, if you feel like you learned anything interesting, please feel free to leave a like down below. And if you feel like you learned absolutely nothing at all, feel free to leave a dislike. You're free. And if you have any questions, feel free to leave a comment down below on YouTube. Or if you're on Twitch, feel free to message me. If you have any questions about anything at all about the game. But overall, those are my thoughts. And be safe out there in the cold winter darkness. Christmas is on coming.